Hello there, you beautiful people, and welcome to this project where we're going to be making a game of tic-tac-toe, noughts and crosses, XO, 3 in a row, whatever you want to call it. You've most likely played it, and it's going to be epic. So this is going to be quite an involved project, and it's going to use a lot of what we've done so far. As we're getting towards the end of the course, I'm going to step up the difficulty to show you what's possible, and also really use those pieces of the course that perhaps you might have forgotten. So it's going to be a good reminder as well. Now, if you follow along, even though it will be hard, by the end of it, you won't recognize yourself. You'll be so much better at programming Python than you are now, and will have built, with your own hands, a very playable game, and will totally be a great Python programmer. If you're ready, let's jump into it. So I've gone ahead and created a script called game.py in the usual place, and we're going to start off by making the board. So how can we make a board in Python? Well, the board, if we think about it, has 9 spaces, right? 3 columns of 3. So the data type that we need to use to make the board needs to be able to hold multiple things inside of it. So we're going to need a data structure of some sort. So that means if we're going to use a data structure, we're going to use a list, a tuple, or a dictionary. So which one is it? Well, the board can change as, players make moves. So therefore, we can't use tuples because tuples are unchangeable. And the simplest way to access each of the spaces would be to use a number, just to number each of the spaces. And because lists allow us to access elements using numbers, we're going to use a list. So we're ready to go. Our board is going to be just an empty list to start with and needs to have 9 elements. So what we could do is we could type board equals and give it blank spaces like this 9 times. But I'm quite lazy, right? I don't really want to type that 9 times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a list comprehension. And I'm going to say, give me a blank space for I in range 9. And that's that. Now, I isn't actually being used, but this loop is running 9 times. And it's giving me a blank space. Okay, so that's going to give us a board with 9 blank strings in it. Brilliant. So if I print this board, you should be able to see that. There we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Told you list comprehensions were useful, right? So let's just close the shell. Okay, so now we have our empty board. But when I run this, right, it doesn't really look like a tic-tac-toe board, right? A tic-tac-toe board is a grid, is a 3x3 grid. So we want to actually see something like that if this game's going to be believable. So let's just head back over to our function. And the way that I'm going to have this board printed is I'm going to use a function. Okay, and I'm going to define that function. I'm going to call it print board. Now, to create each of the rows, I'm basically just going to print a string. So row 1 is going to be a string of blank, blank, blank. Now, if you're wondering where I'm getting these, they're called pipe symbols. On my keyboard, it is, I press shift and I press the key next to the letter Z. So it's just above the backslash on my keyboard. Yeah, I can't help you if it's not in that position, but just look for the pipe symbol on your version of your keyboard and you should be able to find it. Now, in each of these, this is going to be the first space of the board. This is going to be the second space of the board. This is going to be the third space of the board. So to do that, I'm going to format board 0, board 1, and board 2. Okay, so that's row 1 as a string. I'm going to copy and paste that onto the next line, making sure the indentation's the same. Did you see how it was indented 1 across? That would mess Python up, okay? No, it has to all be in line. So row 2, it's going to be board 3, board 4, board 5, and one more time. Okay, so row 3, we're going to get board 6, board 7, and board 8. Okay, now to actually make it print out, we're going to print a blank line, print row 1, print row 2, and print row 3, and then finally a blank line underneath the board. And these extra blank lines here are just to make it look nice. Okay, they don't really do anything else. So that's our function. Let's go save that. Now when I print the board, when I run the print board function, all of this code's going to run. And what we're going to see is we're going to get our beautiful tic-tac-toe board on the screen. How nice is that? Now this code is slightly repetitive, right? I could write a for loop to print this out, but because it looks so beautiful, I think we'll leave it just as it is, don't you? Now down here, we're going to have, instead of this print board, we're going to have a while loop that basically runs forever, so the game will continue to run. This is in game programming, this is called the game loop. Okay, and basically the rest of our code is just going to go inside of this. So player 1 is going to play as X. Now we need to ask them where they would like to place their move. If the player enters 1, they're going to move to the top left. If the player enters, I don't know, if they enter 5, they're going to go here. Okay, if they enter 8, they're going to go here. So just imagine these blank spaces being like the numbers on a telephone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So to ask for this move, we're going to create a variable called choice, and I'm going to ask for the input, enter your move 1 to 9. Okay. Now I'm going to want to strip away any white space, and because these are numbers, I'm also going to convert it to an integer. Okay, so now we're going to get a number of actual integer data type inside this variable here called choice. So we can now update the board with that move. But there's something we need to bear in mind, however. Because of the fact, the way that the Python list, its indexes start from 0, if they enter 1, to move to the top left, we actually need to say that that is board index 0. Okay, so we need to actually enter an X at the index below their choice. So what I mean is, instead of writing board of choice equals X, we actually want to write board of choice minus 1 equals X. So when they enter 1, 1 would be choice, 1 minus 1 is 0, and that is what goes there. Now actually, before we run this, what I'm going to do is actually up here, I'm just going to change this into 2 spaces. And the reason I'm going to do that is just to give a little bit more space inside of our board. So now when I run it, we're going to see our board pops up, and enter your move. Let's say we want to go straight into the middle. Okay, so we're going to 5. Bang, there pops up an X. So what if I want to go at the top right? Type in 3. There that is. And come on, let's just win a cheeky game. Go number 7. And there we go. And we can stop this by pressing Control and C. So that's amazing, right? We've now got a updating board depending on which, when you enter your moves. But what we need to do, we need to make this so that you can only enter a move when that place is empty. Okay, so for that, we're going to need to check whether our board holds an empty space or not. So right here, we're going to say if board of choice minus 1 is 2 blank spaces, because I've got 2 blank spaces up here, then if it's empty, basically we're going to say board of choice minus 1 is going to become an X. But otherwise, print a blank line and say that space is taken. I'm going to remove this extra line of code here and save that. So what's going to happen is now we're going to have our empty lit thing. I'm going to go straight in the middle, and it's going to go fine. But if I try to press the same space again, it's going to say that space is taken, but it still remains our move, which is kind of just like real life. So we've made a lot of progress in the game so far in this video. We've made the board, printed it to the screen, and allowed player 1 to make valid moves. So that's quite great, right? Now up next, we're going to continue working on our game and get player 2 into it. So I'll see you in the next video.